Welcome to the Ride With Us podcast, presented by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, the world's largest ride enthusiast organization dedicated to the appreciation, promotion, and preservation of roller coasters around the globe. So please keep your hands and feet inside the podcast at all times as we welcome in your host.
Hello, enthusiasts. It's your host, Jessica Gardner. It has been a minute since we've done a roundup of the new coasters that came out this year, so we figured it's time for another First Drop. Correspondent John Davidson talks with editor of Roller Coaster magazine Tim Baldwin about Voltron Nevera at Europa Park and Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City. And then the Perry twins, Ace Communications Director Derek Perry and Ace Social Media Manager Doug Perry break down Iron Menace at Dorney Park and Bobcat at Six Flags Great Escape. But first, here's John Davidson.
And I'd like to welcome back to the podcast, Tim Baldwin. Can you give us a little background on how you're tied to the industry, not just with Ace?
Well, sure. I'm one of the lead writers at Amusement Today. And, that's a challenging thing for me because with Ace, I get to oversee Roller Coaster Magazine. And, that's the enthusiast side. But with Amusement Today, I handle the business side, kind of the industry side to all things amusement parks and roller coasters. So it's fun to see it from two different perspectives. And I think I can appreciate it from two different perspectives, writing from both angles. And when you're passionate about something, what better job to have, and
well, that's good because some people say they don't want to mix their hobbies with their work because then the hobby becomes a job. It seems like you maybe got a good mix where you enjoy both sides.
I very much do. And I will tell you the reason why, and that's people. I love the people in the industry. So, whether I'm meeting them as an appreciative fan or as a journalist from the industry side, no matter where I go in my travels, when I see these people, it's meeting old friends. It's great. And it's the people that keep the industry breathing and thriving. And I just love it. I don't know. I'm a people person, so it's a good fit.
Well, that works out. So the reason I came across your name is because in my latest Ace News, I saw your name come across, and there you go, right there. Not only do you do the magazine, you also have an article in the current edition. So what's your article about? Because it looks to me like you're getting excited about Europa Park.
It is my happy place. It's just pretty much my favorite theme park on a personal level. I just have the greatest respect, not only for the look and the feel of that park, but its operations are not only world-class, I think they're pretty much unbeatable. Just to watch how rides run and click and move and just work seamlessly always makes me smile. The attention to detail in that park is wonderful. I just had some friends who went over for the first time and they canceled other plans just to stay over a third day just so they could appreciate everything. They said, okay, Europa Park, I get it now. So, I've always loved
that says a lot if you're going to change your entire vacation.
They ditched two other amusement parks just to stay over there at one, and the only room they had left was like a penthouse. And they said, nope, we're doing it. We're staying. We're just going to enjoy Europa Park. And they did it fully, and it's wonderful. I also have to say that I'm so inspired by the Mock family. Because, over here in America, sure, there's a corporate mentality and fans always love the family-owned parks compared to the corporate structured parks for many aspects. And we all love the chains. We do. We love our chains. But, Europa Park is a family park. And the Mock family, that is their life. For a lot of their lives, they lived in the park. And just seeing how they go through each detail and how each person of the family oversees a different component. They have a family constitution to make sure everything is always done properly. I don't know. I always want to pick up people and say, can I take you over with me and show you, the details and how operations should work and, just the love you see in every single thing they do. They spare no expense. I mean, they're not Disney and Universal, sure, but still they go the extra mile for details. One of the management team one time says, we waste money on guests, which was his way of saying, we do more than we have to do.
We waste money. Well, hey, I mean, you've been to a ton of parks. Do you know how many parks you've been to off the top of your head, if you're just going to guess?
If I had a ballpark, oh, gosh, that's a tough question, John. Everyone's always about coasters, and I'm not a coaster gunner either. But I would say probably about 250 to 300 parks, maybe.
All right. Well, that's saying a lot because that shows that you have a wide variety of parks you've been to. So that's
right.
Those are high praises coming from you then.
It is. I can't praise that park enough. But boy, this new coaster.
Tell me about it. Tell me about the media day. Why don't you start with the media day? And if you could, maybe give some of the lead ups, because just the pictures from the outside just make it look pretty amazing.
Sure. I've never been a super advocate of talking about media days per se, just because when some people get to go and others don't get to go, it's like, oh, well, we didn't invite me, But it was an interesting story this time because I was led to know what day it was going to be. And they said, okay, fly in the day before, get acclimated, get back on, this time and all that. So we bought our plane tickets. And then a few weeks after that, it's like, oh, we've moved it up a day. And I said, well, we'll be landing. So I guess we'll miss the fireworks and the German speeches and all that, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So we landed at Frankfurt. Our driver picked us up and he drove us there. And when he drove us past our hotel, which was at the Kronosar, I said, I think we're at the Kronosar Hotel. I was told to take you to my boss. It's like, okay. So we whisked around the resort. We drove straight into the administrative back areas. And then a man opened the door. Follow me. Take their luggage to the Kronosar. And then we were whisked through. Apparently there was a rainstorm that morning. So by the time we got there, the press conference had just started. So we really didn't miss hardly anything except a few speeches in German. So we were there. So yeah, that's a funny story to be there.
Wow. So you got you basically got VIP'd in there.
Well, yeah. And we had no idea. We figured we'd missed everything, and we texted our contact when we were coming up off the motorway. He says, where are you now? And I says, we're driving past Atlantica. And the next thing we know, it's like, follow me. And we're whisking through the back areas of Europa Park to get there. It was fun, but it was nice just to see the excitement, to see that coaster run. It's mesmerizing because at Media Day, they didn't have all 7 trains on. As I was talking to one of the people in operations, he said, we don't think of it in terms of trains when loading. We think of road because it's a moving station, a continual kind of platform thing. And so 4 people fill this row, and then 4 people fill this row, and then 4 people fill this row. And that continues. And, when a train is complete, it just kind of advances forward. But the people who are walking on that conveyor, loading it, they don't think of trains. They just know 4 people need to be in this row every 10 seconds. And it works. It works wonderfully. It's cool.
Since you're talking about the trains, why don't you give us a little overview? Are these long coaster trains, smaller trains? I basically know because of the pictures that are smaller, but give us a little more details about the loading and how they're pulling those in. Is it just a circular thing where they're popping in?
Basically, if anyone has done Hagrid's at Universal, they know how the moving platform kind of goes, that people are always just taking their seats. This is called a striker coaster from Mock Rides. They had a few previous versions that they called Big Dipper that were 2 rows across for the cars. And these are bigger. They're 4 rows. So it's 4 rows of 4, seats 16. And when the train is full, it just advances forward into the beginning portion of the ride. So it loads very fast, and they're very comfortable in the seating. If anyone's been to Silver Dollar City and done Time Traveler, they know how the restraints come down from above. And oh my gosh, these are such beautiful trains, just stunningly beautiful. Just the upholstery and the detailing. I just love it. If you're there at night, they light up in the dark when they're launched, and they're very cool, but they're comfortable. The 2 end seats stick outside the track, kind of like a wing coaster does.
Like a floorless or more or less?
Oh, yeah. Your feet are dangling no matter what. When you're in the seats, you don't touch the floor. And much like, and I think it's such a cool way to design things. If I can editorialize here, when some parks made the decision to convert their stand-up trains to floorless trains, I've always been an advocate of what Silver Dollar City has on Wildfire. It's really the only B&M I can think of where you kind of hop up in your pedestal seat and your feet swing. You're not touching the floor like on Hulk or something else. Your feet are swinging and dangling, even though the floor doesn't go away. They're just elevated up. And that's the way these trains are. You just get up in your seat and your feet kind of swing there, but it's not floorless by any means. It's just kind of the design of the train.
All right. Well, tell me more about the ride, and then we'll get to the cues afterwards. Since we're already talking about it, and you already kind of mentioned the launches, but is it launches or a launch?
There are 4 launches.
4 launches.
4 launches and 7 inversions. So, Europa Park has like 70 rides. Their collection is one of the largest in the world. But up until Voltron, only 1 went upside down, and that was Blue Fire back in 2009. So, they were kind of due for one more ride to go upside down. But I know Roland Mock, the patriarch of the park, he truly loves families. And as he was talking to me, he just says, he was very proud of the rides. Like, the next thing we have to do is families. It's got to be for the families. And I just want to say, you have so much for the families. This really makes Voltron stand out. And again, he was proud of it. He really was. But it's the park's most intense ride just because it has 7 inversions and 4 launches and all that. But once you're dispatched, you kind of turn a corner, and if you want to call it a little dark ride section, because you're kind of in this enclosed room, the whole premise is Nikola Tesla is experimenting with electricity, and he has this concept of transporting objects and people from point A to point B. And they had those 2 those 2 towers, and they're named after somebody that begins with like Wine Cliff or something, which I'm sure I just totally butchered. But anyway, there's 2 on the ride. And so the idea is you go from one tower to the other, and then you're transported back. So when you get into that dark ride little room, there's just lightning on video screens all around you. And then I don't want to give away surprises. Things happen to you in that room. And then a panel opens, and suddenly the first launch is straight up. In fact, it's beyond vertical. It's 105 degrees. And it's very cool. I'm not a big fan of vertical chain lifts. I always worry about my keys falling out and all that jazz. But this, you are launched up so quickly, and then you have this hang time inversion, and then you're just off to the races after that point. There's a second launch that is a running launch. You're boosted, and you go through several inversions. And it, a lot of people's like, oh yeah, I don't want to just going upside down. I get that. But the 7 inversions are not everything, because there's weird banking, and there's double ups, and there's nice airtime pops. And, just check. So many.
Yeah. Based on your article, you said that even that this one has very diverse versions. So it's not like it's just the series of things just to count as an immersion. Like, they're all unique. And you mentioned hang time. So are some of them hang time rich and some of them are speed rich? Is that
Yeah.
how you get that variety?
I would definitely say that. Like the first one, as you launch out, you kind of pause in that inversion as you come out of the launch. And then others are nice Immelmans and corkscrews and that kind of thing. But then they have like a stall, which I've always loved on RMC attractions. It's my favorite element that RMC has done. So there's some kind of wild and wacky RMC-esque things on Voltron. But as you go through, you do a lot, and then you stop on the turntable. There's a brake run, and you get on this turntable, and you think, wow, if that had been the whole ride, that would have been a great ride. But you're only halfway through because you're under the other tower at that point, and then it rotates, and people know you're going to have to launch. But what they don't expect, and I don't mind giving this surprise away, is it launches you backward, and you go up kind of this curved spike, and then you come back down on the launch again.
So you don't think that's a spoiler? Because I was avoiding saying it launched backwards because I was concerned that somebody might.
I think most people know that, and people who don't, by the time they get there, they'll forget.
You are the person who does all the writing, so we'll trust your on that. So
yeah, that third launch is very startling and surprising to people who are online and looking at all the websites and everything to see what the ride does. But, you have that third launch, drop back onto the fourth launch, and then you just work your way back to the other tower. It has, again, various elements, and it's the anchor attraction to the new land, which is Croatia. It's the new country in the park. And they have all the Croatian architecture, and you're diving through it. So well done. From the moment you enter the queue till the time you get off, there are free lockers right before you head upstairs to the loading station. So you can put all your stuff in there. It's free. And like other coasters that we've seen, Steel Vengeance or Velocicoaster, you collect everything from the other side after you exit the ride. So that's convenient too.
Hard to beat those.
It is. You don't worry about losing a single thing. Once you have peace of mind and you don't have to shell out $2 or $3 extra, put things in a locker. It's great peace of mind. And it's just right before the station. So you're without your precious phone for,
Can't be
a few minutes.
All right. Well, let's back up just a little bit because you mentioned it being Nikola Tesla, and you mentioned some stuff, and we talked briefly about the theming, but I really think we should step back because what's really cool and I only noticed because of your pictures, is that it's almost like the entire queue and everything is a building, and you can almost like you're walking through his laboratory. Is that what you would say?
I wouldn't say the entire queue because there's an indoor portion and an outdoor portion. And then the outdoor portion, it's very turn of the century, old school stuff that I wouldn't say steampunk per se, but there's that just type of machinery and things going on while you're in the outdoor queue portion. There's kind of this water generated vortex tunnel, if people like that, on Fury of Poseidon back at Islands of Adventure. You kind of walk through that element, and then
I love that element.
Yes. Well, once you get inside the station house, which is huge, you load everything upstairs on the second floor, and then the first floor down below is more queuing. There's an animatronic of Nikola Tesla, but again, wouldn't say this is a spoiler because it's dramatic enough. They have Tesla coils all in the ceiling that are just buzzing and generate real electricity above your head.
Wow.
I mean, I want to say there's 4 of them. It's like, and then it makes everyone jump, and it just sets the stage for something really, really cool. It's just done well. You just walk in and say, this is just the coolest.
Nice. Well, we may have started with the most exciting one. So you said it was one of your favorite parks. So you said you don't count coasters, but do you rate them, or is this, in a ballpark of one of your, where would you place it in your personal opinion? Not really related to the ride. You already said it was a good mix and a good fit for the park, but from your personal thoughts?
I'm not a super big inversion type person, but then again, my favorite coaster is Steel Vengeance, and that has 4 inversions in it. So This is kind of like along those lines. If it was just flip, 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 brake run, then I would just be, but the whole experience from the station to all the different elements, this is a world-class coaster. I just, as I was there, I was talking to the people from Mock Rides, and I said, I think this is your masterpiece. Do you? And Christian said, well, we've had lots of masterpieces before, when we did this, but then we got better, and then we did this, and we got better. And he said, yes, right now, I think this is our masterpiece. So it makes me wonder, is he going to love something down the line even more than this? But this is truly a work of art, from the capacity, 1,600 people an hour, to what it does, to just the phenomenal spectator appeal. It's remarkable.
And I don't want to finish talking about Ace Europe without you at least mentioning, I know you at least ran into the Joe Pools, the rep out there. Did you meet any of the other Ace Europe folks while you were at the opening?
One other. Interestingly, Europa Park had enthusiast groups out there.
Cool.
The opening, and then the night after the media day, they had all the coaster fans have kind of a preview. But of course, my body was going on 2 hours of sleep in the last 40 hours. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I've got to get on this time schedule over here. So I did not ride that night, but I got to see some German friends, and that was great. Again, I'm a people person, and some people in the German club, it was wonderful to see them. So everyone was digging it. Everyone was loving it. Truly just, not to use the pun, but there was a real buzz about this ride. I think it exceeded everyone's expectations. People were just going nuts in the gift shop on opening day, lining up at the cash register. So that's always a good sign.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to switch gears and come back to the United States. And in this doubleheader, our second piece is going back to Silver Dollar City for a ride that had a legacy of its own. So let me look up real quick. Fire in the Hole opened in 1972. So I don't ever remember this. I don't ever remember Silver Dollar City without it. But you luckily had a lot more background. So tell me about the original Fire in the Hole.
When we all heard that it was closing, that's when I really started appreciating the things that we didn't always think about. This ride preceded Space Mountain. Everyone always thinks of Space Mountain as the be-all, end-all for indoor coasters, or did for decades. But this was before that. And, there's a little bit of coaster in this, but there's a lot of dark ride. It's predominantly dark ride. And way back when, I don't think the Herschend family felt a roller coaster was the right fit for what Silver Dollar City was. But they knew if they needed it to grow, they were going to have to put in an attraction like this. And so adopting this true story, so they knew Fire in the Hole was going to be important to the Silver Dollar City experience. So they reinvested, and they just made it beefier and classier and cooler. And
before we get to the new one, I do want to mention, I was at Silver Dollar City before it closed. The line, they had to put in temporary queues for that ride that last year because so many people went to ride that for the last time. So I like you said, I think that had I don't want to say cult following because that's the wrong thing. I think it was linked to a lot of people's childhood. So there's a lot of history.
It was beloved. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
all right.
Yeah, people wanted that one last ride, which speaks to the wisdom of their decision to not let it go away. They needed to be part of the experience. And it's a perfect fit to, it used to be called Fireman's Landing. Now it's the Fire District. So if anyone out there thinks, oh, well, they just kind of redid it. It's like, no, it's still standing there, I think, on the other side of the park. It's scheduled to be taken out eventually. But this is not the same thing just gussied up. This is completely rebuilt, ground up. The original didn't even have a floor. It was, I do believe it was gravel. Not that they promoted that. But now it's just in this big, huge building, supremely built, with, steel, concrete floors, multiple floors, and just new, beefier track from RMC. It's all brand new.
Yeah. So to your point, they announced the new Fire and Hole at IAPA Expo while they were still running the old ride. So they did give everybody that kind of here's what's coming. And so I do kind of like the fact that you're right. They didn't like just reuse the queue and reuse all the animatronics. I mean, completely ground up. So why do you think they went with RMC, and how do you think that kind of adds to the charm of Silver City?
Well, they did, and you can read my story and Amusement Today.
A good plug.
But they had a relationship with Rocky Mountain from Outlaw Run. And as they were seeking the manufacturer to do this right, I think they felt that Rocky Mountain was the right fit. Particularly Rocky Mountain's done things with flat track compared to tubular steel. And I guess those meetings and negotiations just all worked favorably for RMC. So I think it was a very good partnership. And you mentioned the IAPA Expo. They revealed the trains at IAPA Expo last year. And the onboard sound truly makes the ride now much more immersive. People kind of knew the old story. They knew the bald knobbers were setting the town on fire, blah, blah, blah. But now, as you go through, you hear the voices and you hear the music, and you just hear everything happening from the train itself as well as the audio along the way. So it's much more immersive.
So I know you said that you knew you were expecting the theming to stay the same and all of those expectations, but were you expecting the immersion of all that sound and everything? Because I don't know at IAPA, they spent much time talking about onboard audio and all of those things. So was that a shock, or did you kind of knew it because of the industry?
It was a surprise how effective it was. I knew it was supposed to have onboard sound, and I've done a handful of rides with onboard sound. Sometimes it's very noticeable. If anyone's done Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously, you have, which song did you get? And, you hear that. So sometimes it's very noticeable, and sometimes onboard sound is lost in the rumble and whatever. This works very good. I just thought it just complemented the ride nicely. They did retain some scenes from the original, which people are glad to see, but there are new scenes too. And my favorite is where you go head on to the train. It used to be, to quote someone who does not want to be quoted on this, I'm sure, it used to be a light bulb in a coffee can, important. But now you are headed straight toward a train, and it looks like the train that's in the park. So that always made me smile. I thought it was very cool. And, the final plunge at the end, my husband told me, oh, I get it now. They put dynamite on the water towers to put out the fire, and that's why you have a splashdown. It all came together for him now with the storyline.
Oh, so he'd been writing the old one, but never quite fully got the entire vision of the coaster. And
there was a splashdown at the end. And then, that's really kind of a valid point to make, because, you're just going along and you have these drops, but it's clear now when you see all the water towers around you, and there's even like a lighted fuse that's kind of following you into that drop. It just makes more sense.
And the special effects are, I'm assuming, a step up, because let's be honest, the old one was very classic,
very old school. And it's not like this is filled with animatronics that are amazing or anything. Again, they retained what they could, some of the scenes from the old ride, so it still has that old school classic feel.
Uh-huh.
You also notice new things like, oh, that's new. Oh, that's new. Oh, they've added that. And each time you ride, there are little things to see that you didn't see your first time around. And I love that in a ride. But if I can say one thing more than anything else, when I was doing a lot of radio and TV interviews at the media day, I think one of them asked me, describe the ride in 3 words. And I said, without hesitation, without blinking, I said, everybody can ride. And they go, oh, that's perfect. And, this is a marvelous ride for them because it is so multi-generational. People who rode it as kids are now grandparents, and they're taking their kids and their grandkids on it. So they can still do it. If you want intense rides, you've got Outlaw Run, you've got Powder Keg, you've got Time Traveler, you've got all these great, thrilling roller coasters, but this is one that everyone can do. I think you just have to be as tall as a yardstick to ride it. So that's going to be a very, very young age. And, a little kid can kind of think, I did something. I rode a big ride. And they did, because it's a $30 million ride.
Yeah. And some other things I thought was interesting is I noticed the length is almost within a rounding error the same. I mean, it's just over 1,500 feet, both the old one and the new one. So I just thought it's funny that so much of the stuff and how hard they worked on keeping it, the same classic thing. So it's good. And so before I let you go, is there any other things about Silver City you want to mention, or the ride and how it fits into the park? I know we already kind of skipped over a little bit of the queuing and the theming because so much of that is just a carryover. But any unique differences you can call out, or?
Well, I would say yes, because the vehicles are new. The storyline of the queue is you're really there to be shown a preview of these fire pumpers, that are designed to put out fires. You're there for kind of a preview look-see. And of course, while you're there, the town gets set on fire. So you are called into action and you're riding those. So that's kind of a clearer story now, or a new element to the story, that you are in the process of trying to put out the fire. And I just thought that was a neat angle. It's done very well. When you redo an attraction, you're going to have the people say, you have to make it just like it used to be. And then you have other people say, no, make it newer and bigger and better. So you're in a no-win situation. But I think they struck a fantastic balance. Like you said, the track remains about the same. So they have a wonderful balance between the familiar and the new. And I think they have pleased everybody.
Well, that is a wonderful thought to end on. So, Tim, thanks for coming back on the podcast. And thanks for being on the first episode with a first drop doubleheader.
Well, thank you for asking me to do so. My pleasure.
Hi, I'm Derek Perry, ACE's Communications Director, and I'm with my brother, Doug Perry, ACE's Social Media Manager, and today we're going to talk about Iron Menace at Dorney Park and the Bobcat at Six Flags Great Escape. Doug, which one do you want to start talking about first?
How about we start with Iron Menace, since that's the one that we rode first and it opened first.
Great idea.
So as you know, Iron Menace is the new B&M dive coaster that debuted in Allentown, Pennsylvania at Dorney Park in April, and it's Dorney Park's first new roller coaster in 16 years. Iron Menace is also the first B&M dive machine to be built in the Northeast United States, and it's the park's 8th roller coaster. It's their 3rd B&M, joining the Inverted Talon and Floorless Hydra the Revenge.
What a trifecta. I love those 3 coasters.
Me too. And another fun coaster that they have there is Possessed, and Iron Menace is located right next to that Intamin launched Impulse coaster. And Iron Menace is in the same location where their coasters Laser and Stinger were once located.
But and the area looks totally different than it did before.
Yeah, the area is now themed to a steel yard, in fitting with the theme of Iron Menace. And in addition to the coaster, you'll find MT Buckets, which is their flying scooters ride, and it's themed to fit into the area. It looks like it's all distressed and a really cool paint job. And there's also Ghost in the Machine in that area. It's the Iron Menace themed maze, which debuted last year for the haunt at Dorney Park, and it will be open again for this year's haunt.
And it's really well done. During the media day, they had it open, and they didn't have any actors in there, but they let us walk through, and just all the special effects and the sound effects and the lighting, everything looked so cool. It was so creepy and scary, even without the scare actors. I can't even imagine how it is with the scare actors.
Yeah, you're right. I was totally impressed by it. And speaking of the spooky theme, let's talk about the backstory behind Iron Menace.
Yes, which they put so much effort into the backstories of these rides.
So the creative backstory that Ken Parks and Clayton Lawrence and the team at Cedar Fair and Dorney Park created, it's the mystery behind the menace. In the early 1900s, Scottish businessman Hiram S. McTavish opened McTavish Steel Mill, a direct competitor to Bethlehem Steel Company. Greed dictated McTavish's every move, and he was well known to prioritize profits over people. With an eye on maximizing output, McTavish created a massive hauler he dubbed Iron Menace, a device the steel industry had never seen. The rail transporter moved workers and ore at record volumes and dizzying speeds. Suddenly, the greedy steel baron mysteriously disappeared. No one knows how or where. And shortly after, McTavish Steel Mill closed. All that remains today are the mill's decrepit shell, rusty relics, and wild tales of the owner's whereabouts.
I love that backstory, but I don't think I would have wanted to work for McTavish.
No, he doesn't sound like a great boss to have. And that continues. The queue is designed to look like McTavish's steel factory, and the extended queue has a van that looks like it belongs to some ghost hunters searching for the paranormal activity associated with the disappearance and possible haunting of the factory by McTavish himself.
Yeah, when we saw Clayton Lawrence, he was telling us about the modern story where it's these content creators or influencers and they're going to investigate the paranormal activity and what's going on. So that's kind of where you are. You're exploring this steel factory.
And once you're in the station ready to board, there are lighting and sound effects as the train starts to ascend the lift hill, and the sound continues as you climb the lift hill. It's pretty steep and quick, and then once at the top, unlike most other B&M dive coasters around here, the first drop is right there in front of you as you crest the lift hill. You're held right on the edge, looking down. It's building the anticipation. You see a beautifully designed piece of art. You're facing down. It's like a fiery pit.
Yeah, and Clayton said that when they were designing that artwork at the bottom, they had to keep on going up to the top of the lift hill, look down, and make adjustments. And the team that did that did a fantastic job. It's so impressive. Yeah,
and I've seen pictures and videos of it at night. Unfortunately, we were only there in the daytime. But yeah, it looks even better at night lit up. So that's going to be really cool during the haunt also. And so you're up there looking around. You have a beautiful view of Dorney Park. And then once the train is released, you're dropped on a 95-degree vertical angle. And you go through a nonstop thrilling layout that includes the foreign versions, which is the first one's the Immelman. And that it's just a relentless ride. Like, there's a bit of floater airtime in that element, and you just get whipped through it.
And the G-forces are intense.
Like they're positive Gs, too.
You definitely feel the force, yeah.
Getting pulled out of it. And then it goes into the zero G roll, which is another cool element. And around there, too, you're flying past the supports from the coaster track, and they're almost near-miss kind of leg chopper effects a couple times on the ride. And then the third element is the inclined loop, which is the first of its kind on a dive coaster. And you get whipped through that. And then there's a corkscrew, and then the ride wraps up and brings you into the brake run.
And it's all happening so fast-paced. It's so quick. The elements are just coming one after another that you almost get disoriented, like in a good way. You don't know what's coming next. You don't know where you are. You're just flying around. And it's definitely an exhilarating ride. And I love just even when you're walking into that area, it's for people who aren't even going to get on the ride, it's a showstopper. It's impressive. Just people stop and they watch as the train crests that first hill and it pauses there and everyone's screaming and people on the ground are cheering and it drops down. So yeah, any dive coaster, has that. But this one with the location as you're walking to the station and the queue, and then for, like you said, during the haunt, making your way to the haunted house and everything, like it's there's a lot of energy in the area. I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, they totally did. And the train is whizzing by you, at a top speed of 64 miles per hour. And for those of you who don't know, the trains, there are 2 trains and they have 3 cars per train, 7 across seating. And it's a similar train, I guess, to Dr. Diabolical.
Yeah, so that makes it unique where you have the actual center seat in the row. Since there are 7 seats across, you can sit in that center seat and be in the middle of the track, the center of the action. So if you get a chance, you definitely have to ride on the edges. Like, that's always cool. But also that center seat is where it's at. Another thing that I loved about Dorney Park and them debuting Iron Menace was they worked so hard throughout the year to build up the anticipation, the social media team, PR, marketing, everything they did last year with the teasers. They were so cool. They were so well done. And then them getting Ace involved, we loved that they... everything they did, from participating on the podcast to working with Ace Eastern Pennsylvania and having Ace members out there for the construction tours and everything. We appreciate Dorney Park so much for everything they did, and congratulations on opening such an awesome roller coaster.
Yeah, Ryan Eldridge and Jessica Naderman and the whole team, they did such an awesome job. And like you said, it was cool. They built the anticipation. We were all ready to forge our own fate this summer.
Definitely. And when you are over in the northeastern United States, and you can easily make your way from Pennsylvania up to Six Flags Great Escape, Lake George, New York, for their new roller coaster for 2024, the Bobcat. It's a 55-foot tall masterpiece, and it was built by the Gravity Group, designed and built by them. And it's the only wooden roller coaster to open in North America in 2024. And the first to open in the country since 2020.
Yeah, and that last one that opened before the Bobcat was Texas Stingray at SeaWorld San Antonio.
Yes, and it also marks the first roller coaster to be built at Six Flags Great Escape in 19 years. The first new one. And since Great Escape is also the home of the Ace roller coaster landmark Comet, of course, we all love Comet, it is now one of only 2 parks in New York to feature a pair of wooden coasters, the Bobcat and the Comet. So it's quite the duo there. We'll get into talking about some of the details of the Bobcat, but it was cool to be there for the opening and to talk to Corey Kiepert from the Gravity Group. He's an engineer and partner at the Gravity Group, and he said that the Bobcat was a real collaborative effort between Chad Miller, Michael Graham, and the whole Gravity Group team. They all came together and put their fingerprints on this roller coaster, or their
paw prints.
Yes, their paw prints. And he also told us that as many trees as possible were retained on the site to help maintain the natural beauty of the park. So if you've been to Six Flags Great Escape before, it's a beautiful park. There are so many trees. It's in the Adirondacks. It's beautiful. And that they kept the nature, the natural element in mind while they were constructing this roller coaster and designing it is really impressive. And it's the same site as the Alpine Bobsled, which gave its last rides prior to the end of the 2023 season. And so they repurposed the station of the defunct alpine bobsled. So if you know in the park where that was, this is where the Bobcat is. And the designers even chose to have the lift hill travel in a direction to keep a row of trees still intact. And so when you're on the prowl, on the roller coaster, rushing around the track, it just makes it more exciting. You'll really feel like a Bobcat going through the woods. I loved this roller coaster. I think, any wooden roller coaster that opens is a great addition to a park, and definitely hats off to the Great Escape, Six Flags Great Escape, and the Gravity Group for building this wooden roller coaster. So leading into the coaster, before you even get on the ride, they have this really cool archway with all these rocks and waterfalls and bobcats looking down at you as you enter the queue. And when you enter the queue, you then make your way under the lift hill and through the structure. So it really builds the anticipation with the train rushing around you as you're getting closer and closer to the station for your turn to ride. And once you're in the station, it's themed to a cabin in the woods. There's a fireplace and wall decorations, and it definitely passes the time looking at everything as you wait for your time to board. The roller coaster itself, once you're on the train, you head up the lift hill, and it's a quick lift to the top. Once you get to the top, you have a nice view of the Adirondacks. You can see all the forests and the mountains, and you make a left-hand turn, and then you're quickly brought down a 55-degree first drop. And that drop sets the tone for the whole ride. It's super, super smooth. Like, you're not expecting a wooden roller coaster to be that smooth. And then after that first drop, there's an airtime hill, and right after that airtime hill, you dive under the structure. So your hands are up from that airtime hill, and then you want to bring them down because you think they're going to come too close to the supports. But of course, your paws are safe. And then you end up zipping around through drops and bank turns up to 56 degrees in a figure eight design. So smooth, once again. It is incredibly smooth. And then the finale of the ride is a double down, and it reaches speeds of 40 miles per hour. And there's so many airtime moments.
Yeah, there are at least, 9 airtime moments?
I think so, yeah. You just keep on coming out of your seats.
And it's so smooth, and the Timberliner trains are so comfortable.
Yeah, these are the next generation Timberliner trains. So if you've been on other coasters by the Gravity Group, you've definitely experienced these before, but these are the latest versions of them. What makes these trains different than other ones is they can make tighter turns because they have great articulation, which results in a flawless execution of the track's twisted path. And the combination of the Timberliner trains and the prefabricated track is what makes it so smooth. This is the first coaster from the company to be built completely using pre-cut track and prefabricated structure, which resulted in the coaster being built very quickly. And this track is pre-cut by Precision CNC equipment, and it's said to be 30 times stronger than traditional wooden track. And another thing I love about the Bobcat is the train. At the front of the train, they've got that molded Bobcat that's coming out at you. And the first time we saw it was at the IAAPA Expo. The Gravity Group had it on display last November. And Hunter Lawrence from the Gravity Group, she was so excited for it. She was wearing cat ears, and we got to talk to her in the train, and she told us about the detail and really pointed out how beautiful the train actually is. And from the debut of the train at the IAAPA Expo to the actual train that was running that's on the tracks now, she said there were some modifications. They updated it a little, and it really looks spectacular, which is a great gift to everyone who goes to the park to celebrate the park's 70th anniversary. And they have many historical tributes to the past, including one to the coaster's predecessor. So The Alpine bobsled entrance still stands, and they feature a car from the Intamin attraction, so it gives visitors a chance to reminisce before taking a ride on that classic's replacement. And I was curious how they came up with such a great name for the roller coaster, it being the replacement of Alpine bobsled and the Bobcat. And Doug, I believe you asked Rebecca Wood, who's the Six Flags Great Escape president, how it all came to be.
Yeah, she explained how the name came about. She said her team was Googling Adirondack animals like snakes and all different things. And as soon as they pounced upon Bobcat, they knew that was it. And they had a winner. They're small and feisty, just like the coaster. Yes.
So a perfect name for it. And Rebecca Wood was so excited about the opening of the Bobcat. The whole team was. It was electric. And they were embraced Ace from the announcement of the Alpine bobsled closing to the Bobcat announcement to the opening. They worked with Ace New York and really provided so much for Ace. So we really appreciate everything that they have done. And this is a roller coaster that you need to get out and ride right meow, because it's the cat's meow. What did you think of it?
I loved it. It's fun and thrilling, but not too extreme, so it's perfect for families. And it's very rideable. You just want to try out every seat on it and ride it as many times as you can.
Six Flags Great Escape, they also did a great job with keeping us updated with all their social media posts. The marketing communications team, they did a great job with it.
Shout out to Jennifer Mance and Taylor Myers and the whole team at Six Flags Great Escape.
When you have a chance, make your way to Six Flags Great Escape to ride the Bobcat and Dorney Park to ride Iron Menace. There are two winners, and you're going to love them.
Thank you so much to John Davidson, Tim Baldwin, Derek Perry, and Doug Perry. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and give us 5 stars if you can, rate and review. And if you have any questions, comments, or podcast episode pitches for us, please reach out to podcast@aceonline.org. Don't forget to check the website, ridewithace.com, and remember that Ace is everywhere you consume your social media. On Facebook, X, Threads, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Make sure you're subscribed to Ace's pages on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Discord. Follow Ace everywhere to stay on top of all the coaster and park news coming out and to hear what your Ace membership has to offer. Thanks for listening. Hope you get to ride a coaster today.
Ride With Us is produced by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, a registered 501c3 organization. Visit ridewithace.com for additional information, and we will see you at the parks.